Welcome to Between Two Molars, an open conversation of the wins, setbacks, and messy middle of business ownership. A new kind of podcast that pulls back the curtain. No fluff, real conversations, real lessons, and the real life of running an orthodontic practice. So sit back between two molars and let's get into it. Welcome to Between Two Molars, the space where real conversations happen.
I'm Diana Weaver.
And I'm Michelle Shimmin. Together, we are diving into the real-life challenges, the wins, and the wisdom from inside orthodontic practices.
So grab your coffee and get comfortable. It's time to talk Between Two Molars.
And today we're talking about the scheduling spiral, when too busy isn't really productive.
I love this topic. Schedule templates are a very hot topic.
They should be.
They should be. And I see this all the time on the social media posts.
Right.
A lot of people ask, what I need a template for 2 TCs and 1 doctor and 6 clinicians or whatever it is. Can somebody
share theirs?
Can somebody share theirs? And I'm going, wait a minute, there are so many different variables that go into building a template, and I would love to talk about what those variables are. How do we eliminate some, and how do we create some really strong, efficient templates to where we're maximizing the productivity and not just creating busy work?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to take care of the difference between activity and productivity. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that for sure. So the one thing first I want to talk about is, what is the problem? What is the issue around this? And what I'm observing and experiencing so often is the lack of productivity and efficiency. And so team members are feeling overwhelmed. Doctor is feeling frustrated because there's nothing worse than a doctor walking into a treatment area and seeing some team members standing around.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And so team members, they might have 5, 7, 9 minutes between. It's not enough time to start a project per se. And so it's just inefficiency. And when we want to look at how to be as profitable, as efficient, and have room to grow and maintain that efficiency, it's really important to set up a solid foundation. And that foundation is with a very strategic schedule template.
So where do we start with that?
Well, if you look at the myth behind the maxed out schedules now, when was the last time you, team members, audience joining us today, assessed and recalibrated or adjusted your schedule template? You should be doing this at least once every 6 months. Now, I'm not talking about rebuilding an entire schedule template. I'm simply talking about doing your procedure counts and taking a look at what your procedure times look like and just ensuring that it's still accurate. Because if your practice is growing 15 or 20% from last year, or if your share of chair and your treatment modalities have adjusted, that percentage has shifted either direction, you absolutely need to make some adjustments to your schedule template.
And also your clinical technicians. So maybe when you created these schedule templates, you had these younger, newer to the office, and as they grew and developed their own skill, as they grew and developed their own skill set, they're faster. They know more. They can, the doctors maybe trust them with handling more of that template. So 100%. Every variables. 6 months, there's variables that you need to just readjust and kind of relook at the math, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think relook at the math, because the math needs to math.
The math always has to math.
We say this all the time. And so we are going to talk about how to build in growth and to blend virtual care and monitoring and dynamic scheduling into your scheduling template. But first, we should be talking about what it is. Most practices have templates built, sure. More times than not, they're a number of years old and outdated.
I would agree with that.
And so the first place that you should start is run your procedure counts for the last 6 months. How many, actually, I'm going to back up even farther. Have you built out your scheduling configuration?
Oh, what's a configuration?
Your scheduling configuration is your template is built off essentially a class, a chunk, and you have a whole number of procedures that are going to fit into this. Same length of treatment time, similar doctor times, similar type procedures.
Sure.
And so this configuration, we recommend 18 to 20 scheduling configurations. And that doesn't mean procedures. Remember, you have a whole bunch of procedures that fit into these configurations. If you have too few configurations, your scheduling template is willy-nilly. It's not tight enough. It's not tight enough. There's too many options to fit into those procedures. If you have more than 18 to 20 configurations that you have built your template off of,
it's not flexible enough.
It's not flexible enough. And so it doesn't allow you the flexibility for efficiency. So do you have a scheduling configuration, and how current is that configuration? Assess it and make sure that you still have procedures that you are doing on that configuration, and make those adjustments first.
And making sure that all the team members know the standard operating procedures within those configurations.
Right.
What are those appointments, making sure that everybody's doing the same thing in the same order.
Chairside
protocols. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to touch on what you said a moment ago, when we see it on social media a lot, where people will say, hey, can you just share a template with me? We get that request a lot. Hey, can you just send me an example of what a template would look like with this scenario and this number of chairs and doctors and so forth? And the answer is no, because I don't want you to build your template off of that. Right. There are so many variations on what doctors prefer in regards to when they are chairside, how long they are chairside, if they come back chairside, the trust they have in their team, how much they delegate out in each procedure. And as a clinical trainer, we've both worked decades chairside. We know exactly how it should typically go. So we can typically provide some insight and guidance through these conversations. But that's where you get that full customization on the schedule template.
Well, and also your state regulations. Some states are, a little tighter on those regulations than other states.
A lot tighter.
And so the team members really and truly can't do certain things in certain states. So that's a big variable and variation. A small amount of doctor time in one state may require a large amount of doctor time in another state.
A perfect example of where you have to customize it completely. We were building a template for a client that had 2 doctors, and it was next to impossible to get these 2 doctors to agree on what that chairside protocol was going to look like. And they preferred to have, it was so different, they preferred to have 2 separate templates. So whichever doctor was working on that day would work off of that template, which we worked very hard with these doctors, and they were phenomenal. And we were able to help them to understand the benefit of coming together and streamlining similarities with that, so that you had that unified messaging to your team, that unified treatment planning and timing, and it just ultimately allowed the business to run smoother and to run ultimately more profitable, because you're completing treatment on time a lot more often. And so that is just a perfect example of how even just between 2 doctors, you have so many variables that you should not build your template off of somebody else's example.
So we have our classifications, and we've got your appointment types that are falling into those classifications. We've pulled your procedures. How frequently do you recommend running actual timings on appointments? Every 6 months?
So especially if you have a pretty, I'm sure you experience this as well, but when you have a pretty experienced team, when you have a team that's been with you for a long time, that's not necessary. If you've got a number of new team members, if you've had a lot of turnover in your clinical area, if you have new to orthodontics team members as well, I would absolutely run some timings. And you can do some spot timings on specific procedures.
I was going to say that when you introduce new treatment modalities, maybe you're changing from one system to another system, and you're trying to work out all the kinks out of that.
Sure.
Redoing your timings on that is going to be greatly beneficial.
Just to grab, I love to assess 3 timings per technician per procedure and look at
regular
the averages.
Timings.
Right? Yeah, we don't want.
I don't want the outliers.
No. And that's why we say averages. There are going to be some situations where there's going to be some outliers. You're right. And we are going to look at the averages and recognize that we're always going to have a situation where there's outliers. But I want you to talk about don't build in the waste, because I think it's really beneficial.
It's huge.
But we need to talk about that as well, the benefit of the practice and the doctor, but also how can we support the team members in not building out that waste?
The timings are really important, because we can understand how much waste is really going into these procedures. And the waste could just be, we need to take this procedure and move it to a different class, or a different location in the schedule as a whole to make that waste go away. Because as you look to see where the doctor time is in each of these classifications, you're going to be able to quickly see on the schedule that you have, I can't have a doctor in 4 places at one time. We see that all the time, and it makes no sense to me.
A lot of time, block scheduling can be pretty, popular that people like as well. But we have to realize, even in the block scheduling, we only have one doctor that can be in one place at one time. So you cannot have the same procedures 4 times across and expect that efficiency.
Let's touch a little bit on the block scheduling, because we've been in offices where they're doing block scheduling, which I see the reasons and benefits behind that for sure. And I see floods of patients coming in all at one time, and then floods of patients leaving all at one time. So not only do we only have one doctor across at this one time frame, but you have an influx of patients that your scheduling coordinator is checking in, and an influx of patients that the scheduling coordinator is checking out all at the same time. And then guess what happens before and after? Waste,
a lot of waste. So I see this as a lot of effort to do the concept of block scheduling without understanding what that really is. And the concept of block scheduling is doing all similar procedures, but you have to recognize they still have to be staggered within that time frame. But I want to go back to understanding how to build out the template without building in waste, because the team members are going to feel that they need extra time because they feel it run into the ground. So that's another benefit of really understanding truth behind the timings, so that we can set up a scheduling template that's going to encourage success with the team members, but it also sets a caliber, right? It sets a baseline for expectation for timing. And we can also recognize, do we need to increase our training so that we can fit into what those expected timings should be? When, as clinical trainers, when we're working in this space, we definitely know how and when we should be able to fit in a procedure. And it's great to be able to also talk through with the doctor different scenarios to say, if we efficiently worked the first part of this procedure like this, it would save you additional trips and steps in. And, the maths, we go down to the minute of doctor time. And there's a lot of practices that don't support or see the need for doctor time, or they've tried it and it doesn't work. I can understand that. So, one way or the other, I want what's best for the practice, but we're building a template off of doctor time, because the fact of the matter is that's all we have. Is so many minutes at a day of doctor's time. And so we take it down to the minute, and I love it getting to the end of our process that we do and get to be able to say, well, we've got, 178 extra minutes, or more often than not, we are short 178 doctor minutes. We've got to change something around here. And it allows us to be able to look at, do we need to bring in an additional assistant and chair to open up more time? Do we need to open it up another day? Do we need to extend our days? I have 2 examples. It was really, really great. A very established doctor, phenomenal doctor, just wanted to maintain what they were producing and doing, but was interested in working less days. And so when we did the math, we did the procedure counts, we did all of the minutes through the day and the doctor time, we even though this wasn't requested, we were still able to build in a 10% growth, which to me allowed for not a fully tight schedule, right? But build in the 10% growth and still cut down 2 production days a month.
Which, isn't that the most celebrated? I was
so proud of that.
I geek out whenever I see those Excel spreadsheets, right? And I can see it and I can visualize it, and it's so to be able exciting.
To go back to this doctor and say, you're now on 4 days of production, 3 days of production, 4 days of production, 3 days of production, as opposed to straight 4 days every week.
And you meet the goals that because it's not about us.
It's not about us. It's about what the doctor wants. And we work backwards from that. And it is really, really energizing to be able to deliver on that and see how that comes to fruition. But we did have another example where we worked on a schedule template, and this particular doctor starts later in the morning, has a 2-hour lunch every day, ends, at 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's just growing remarkably. And we had to have a different conversation where we say there is not enough of you.
Hours in the day.
There's not enough of your hours in the day. We need more minutes. And so let's sit down for some high level strategy and talk about what that means. Does that mean shortening your 2-hour lunches every day? Does that mean starting earlier, going a little bit later, adding another day? Or you don't want to change yours at all and it's time to bring on a support doctor.
Sure.
And so this information allows for very high level strategic discussions and strategies that I feel set the doctors up to be very, very successful.
Those are great examples. I want to go back to the waste part of that because as we tie in what those examples are.
That's what you're so passionate about.
I know.
Let's get rid of the waste.
Let's get rid of the waste. Let's get out the waste. But when we understand that we can actually build in, this is what we hear all the time. Well, I don't have enough time to turn over my chairs and set up my next chair. I need a sterilization tech to come in and help support that. But if we can build a schedule in a strategic way where we're adding in a little bit of time to set up and clean up within that appointment, you're accomplishing all of those goals. You don't need 5 minutes in between every patient and wasting that time. Also, we base our schedule templates off of minutes, and I don't want the team members or doctors to be fearful of that because I hear frequently, well, Diana, what happens when somebody's late or somebody's early? Well, of course, we've got ebbs and flows with our schedule template. We've got averages. And we're accommodating those things. But if we can get rid of some of those waste, we can facilitate a greater patient experience all over. I know that you and I, when you go into medical offices, I hate sitting in the waiting area. And that's truly what it is in the medical office. It's a waiting room because that's what we do. When we build templates for orthodontic offices, we eliminate that and we can have this lounge or reception area because we're not facilitating that waste. We're not facilitating these patients having to wait for anything.
And this just validates the importance of accurate data. Accurate information and accurate data to assess, to be able to set it up correctly. And it translates to efficiency and productivity. But talk a little bit about the difference between activity and productivity. And how can we support the guests joining us today in knowing the difference and in combating that?
Well, we want productive templates, right? So productivity means we're eliminating the waste. We're structuring the schedule template where it's supporting the growth of the practice. So productivity and activity is really great on the days when the kids are out of school, right? We can be actively seeing patients day in and day out and really fill that schedule out, but are we being as productive as possible in the types of appointments even that we're seeing on those days that the kids are out of school? Everybody wants to come in and get their braces off. We don't need those appointments on the days that the kids are out of school. We want to facilitate start appointments,
high production,
new patient exams, productive production visits within those appointments in and of itself. I don't want a day of just being busy. I want to be productive.
People will come any day of the week, anytime for a deep band.
Correct. Absolutely.
Especially if you're celebrating it and making it a really great event for them. But they will prioritize that procedure.
That's my biggest example for that. And making sure that you're being productive instead of just being active.
Yeah. Excellent. I would love as well to talk a little bit, just for a few minutes before we run out of time here, for the treatment coordinators. When we talk about treatment coordinators and treatment coordinators needing time for follow-up and needing time for their letters and needing time to manage the observation-ready patients, how can we set up a scenario? Because treatment coordinators can't see, they can. I'm not saying it's impossible for them to see it, but are they effective and are they successful if they have to see 9, 10 straight new patient exams a day and they don't have any carved out administrative time?
They have to have carved out administrative time. As a treatment coordinator myself, you have to. And I want to see a chunk of time, because 5 minutes really doesn't do. I can't get into it. I may be able to reach out on a call or a text or for one patient by the time that I'm refreshing my memory on what this patient is doing and what their treatment modality and what we've offered them. So chunks of time are going to be really important to build in to the productivity of your schedule template, or at least if you are in the doctor situation that you had where you're doing 4 production days, 3, 4, and 3, offering that administrative day
absolutely
to your team
absolutely
to come in and be able to do some of these active tasks that they have to have time to do.
So that they can do their job. Now as treatment coordinators, fully expected to get the patients vested in treatment today, the day of their exam, right? And to be able to do that, it does take a little extra time. 30-minute new patient exams boggle my mind, actually, unless you are doing some pre-sales work ahead of time, and that's an interactive process with patients. That's a great concept, and it works very well. You have to have the right type of doctor and right type of treatment coordinator that can facilitate that. But to do, in a typical new patient setup, we need to be able to ensure that all of the buttons are being, tightened up and the bows being wrapped on this and wrapped up and passing the baton well and thoroughly to, the next person, whether that's the clinician to start the treatment, the financial coordinator to start the contract. But when we look at, I remember as a treatment coordinator, I'd have my clipboard and I'd have, my notes and my information, and I'd just be jotting it down and writing everything as much as possible. And then boom, turning that paperwork over and starting right into another new patient exam. And I had to have time that I could carve out. And oftentimes we see that time is only if a new patient cancels. Right. And that's something I really want doctors to see the value and the benefit of having some very strategic administrative time carved out for your treatment coordinator. Right. And that can be some administrative time throughout the week. It doesn't have to be every day. Right. But definitely if you're seeing 8, 9, 10 new patient exams a day, you need to be looking at a support treatment coordinator, like a TC Light. We've facilitated TC Lights before, which are really great.
And also
roles.
For your treatment coordinator, I don't know about you, Shell, but I hated doing pending follow-up. It was what I loathed.
I don't think anybody likes those.
I loathed it. But the productivity for that is start more patients same day.
There you go.
Take it off of your plate.
Challenge accepted. I love that. So, this is really, really great to hopefully put onto the table and start the discussion about the importance of the scheduling spiral and, understanding when too busy isn't really productive and how to strategically carve out the waste. Right. So, I love that we've been able to have this conversation, but if we've touched on anything that hits home with any of our guests today, please, I hope they reach out. I hope they comment, but, I think that we'll just meet back here for more conversations as we continue this from inside the orthodontic practice and between two molars.
I love it. Like what Michelle just said, please comment, please give us questions. We're always looking for new content that's real life for you and what you're looking for. So like, subscribe, and share Between Two Molars.